we have just a little over 4 short weeks until the most important election of our lifetime. Well, Brian, don't we say that every single election? Well, we have. And every single election that Donald Trump is running in is going to be the most important election of our lifetime. I mean, I think at this point, we all know who he is. We know what he represents. We know what he wants to do. At least the people who do not immerse themselves in right-wing propaganda media. If you just sit there and watch right-wing propaganda media all day, you're never going to know Donald Trump is as horrible of a human being as we know. Now, this does not come from CNN and MSNBC like they like to throw at anybody that is not a Donald Trump sycophant. This is just from basic logic and looking with your own eyes and hearing with your own ears just how horrific this human being is. And not just horrific, how incredibly stupid and unintelligible he is, how he's not fit to run this country. And if you have delved at all into any of his criminal behavior, you would see that this is not something that was sparked from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and from everybody on the left just to get Donald Trump. You would find that this comes from the fact that Donald Trump is just flat out a criminal, period. And he wants to try to turn this whole thing, and he's done a pretty decent job with turning it on other people and getting other people to think that what he's saying is true, that this is a Kamala Harris, Joe Biden witch hunt against him, or a Democrat witch hunt against him, whatever it is that you want to call it. We've heard this line over and over and over again. But it's old, tired, and boring. But just this week, we saw that Jack Smith released, or there actually was documents released from the case for the January 6th case that was released that Jack Smith had put together. So basically what this was is after the immunity ruling from the Supreme Court that basically said that, Donald Trump can do whatever he wants as president. Didn't say that in that exact terms, but it gave the implication that he was immune on a lot of things if they were considered official acts. And so what he did is that he reshaped the whole case against him in the January 6th case and basically said, okay, here are the things that he did that were not considered official acts as presidents. This is more of him doing things that he was considered more of a candidate and not as president. So I'm going to read this article. But before I do, it looks like Dave H. has joined the chat. Dave H. has said, Trump 2024. I get this a lot in the comment section on pretty much every video that I put out there. It's just big Trump 2024. But Dave has more to say. Let's see what he has to say. Trump derangement syndrome in real time. That's another thing that they always say, the Trump derangement syndrome. And I think that was probably cool for them for maybe a year or a year and a half. But, here we are 8 years later, and they're still saying Trump derangement syndrome. And I don't know. I think they think that it trolls liberals really well. I think it's stupid. It means absolutely nothing to me. I think it's corny, just like Dave. And Dave finally wraps up, unless he's got more to say. Simp little bitch who is so vain about being bald needs to wear a hat. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of losing my hair. It does suck. And I would say that a lot of the hair loss came from the New York Mets and probably a lot of my sports teams. My sports teams have caused me a lot of hair loss. But I will tell you that, wearing the hat, yeah, I don't know. It just looks better on camera for me, but I don't really, that doesn't really bother me. And no wars under Trump. Yeah, this is Dave who thinks that Trump's the big, bad, tough guy. Dave, let me ask you a question. When he was 86 Mets beat my Red Sox. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. But let me ask you something, Dave. since Trump is your hero and he's a big, bad, tough guy, and he was out there talking about protecting the women, and the men in that audience was cheering, yay, Mr. Trump's going to protect my woman. Are you one of those, Dave? Are you one of those who cheers for Mr. Trump to protect your women in your life? My guess is that you probably are, and that you can't. Yeah, I'm not even really sure, what your situation is. But anyway, I mean, again, these are the kind of things that I get in the comment sections constantly. And people are wondering why I don't respond to some of them. I will tell you, a lot of times I don't respond to them because this is what I get. I mean, this is like childish, dumb shit that makes no sense. It's the same Trump derangement syndrome. It's the simp little bitch. It's the cuck. It's the, all this language that uneducated Donald Trump voters and sycophants get into. I will guarantee you that Dave, a couple things. I will guarantee you that Dave probably didn't graduate high school. I would also guarantee you that Dave probably didn't follow politics until he started reading memes on social media about Donald Trump, and he found out how racist he was. So that got Dave all excited. And now all of a sudden that he's a big political guy. But anyway, on to Jack Smith, who is now basically starting to recontrol this case. He is taken back over after what they deemed was Donald Trump being immune in a lot of these cases. So here's what just happened recently. Special counsel Jack Smith outlined in a motion unsealed by a judge on Wednesday what he called former President Trump's increasingly desperate efforts to subvert the 2020 presidential election results. Listen up, Dave, because you probably don't hear this stuff. Trump and his legal team had opposed the motion, arguing it would interfere with the November election results. The filing unveils new details in connection to the Republican presidential nominee January 6 case. Smith in the motion wrote that Trump's scheme was a private criminal effort. He emphasized throughout the document that the former president was acting in his capacity as candidate and not president. This is an apparent attempt by Smith to respond to the bombshell Supreme Court ruling earlier that this year that said that presidents have immunity for official acts. At its core, the defendant's scheme was a private one. He extensively used private actors and his campaign infrastructure to attempt to overturn the election results and operated in a private capacity as a candidate for office, Smith wrote. So there were a lot of things in this report that, if you haven't saw it, that, basically just showed Donald Trump was more of a criminal than a lot of the people who really haven't followed the case thought. There was a few things in there where he was told about the safety of Mike Pence, and he was basically like, so what? Doesn't even really care about the safety of his vice president because his vice president didn't go along with his sucker scheme, and he wasn't one of Donald Trump's flying monkeys who would just do whatever the boss told him. Mike Pence at least had the wherewithal enough to say, this is not right. There's absolutely nothing legal about what he's asking me to do. So this is absolutely something that I am not going to put my name on. If you could find another way, find another way. And that's what he did. He tried to find other ways. He would call governors. He would call anybody he could to try to get them to go along with his plan. He was calling people and telling them, just say the election was stolen and I'll handle it from there. There's so many different things that this guy has done over the years. And January 6th is one of the worst things that I've ever seen in this country. And I and others have compared it to 9/11. And if you think you're going to patriot shame me out of going, you're really going to compare 9/11 with January 6th, I am. And none of you are talking me out of it. That 100% is on the level of January or 9/11. And the reason why is because on 9/11, these were terrorists from other countries who came into this country and attacked. Now, yeah, I get it. There was more deaths on 9/11. I'm not going down this rabbit hole with you, but the similarities are these were also terrorists, but these were terrorists from our own country, attacking our own country and being led by, at the time, the president of the United States, because he has an ego so fragile that he couldn't handle that he lost badly the 2020 election. So what he did was is he knew he had a lot of uneducated morons who would buy into anything that he said. And that is clear because now a bunch of them are sitting in jail. And if he doesn't win this election, which he's not going to, I got bad news for you, Dan, and for anybody else that is screaming Trump 2024, prepare yourselves because he's not winning in November. And when he doesn't win, he's going to be sitting in the same prisons that those morons who attacked the Capitol are sitting in right now. And you just saw the other day this Tina Peters who tried to go along with the scheme. And then she's crying in front of the judge, or she's being a smartass too, and thought she was going to Trumpian her way through this trial and deny and tell the judge that he knows that you know what I'm saying is true. And see, here's the problem for you idiots. We all don't live in your goofy bubble. We don't abide by your stupidity. So we go on with our lives and we look at things from an abject and from a logistical standpoint, whether we agree with it or we don't agree with it. So what we'll do is we'll take in on all of the information and logistically realize, is this true or is this not true? Unfortunately, Donald Trump has a lot of people out there who easily are duped into believing that whatever he says is true, or you just want to go along with it because there's something inside of you that is just so hateful and angry that you believe that if Donald Trump is president, all the hate and anger that you have inside of you is going to get to be able to be released upon whoever it is that you're angry and hateful towards. But I got bad news for you again. In November, Kamala Harris is going to whip the shit out of this dipshit clown. I promise you that's happening. You can keep a clip of this and come back at me in November. I'm just telling you right now, Kamala Harris is winning in November. That's happening. So prepare yourself, get your militia costumes, whatever it is that you want to do. But I also feel like a lot of the MAGA people are starting to run out of steam as well. I don't know if they have the same gusto as they did in 2016 and as they did in 2020. And I just think that they're looking around. Some of them are looking around and saying, yeah, I still love Mr. Trump, but I ain't going to jail. I'm not going through all that. It's clear that if he loses this election, that I would be screwed. And I'm not doing it. I'll yell all the way up till November, and I'll be as scary as I can all the way up until November. But when November hits and when he loses, you're definitely going to see some people that are still all in on this nonsense. But you're going to also see that there's going to be a significant amount of people who are like, yeah, I might scream a little bit on Twitter, but I'm not going to no Capitol. I'm not going to Washington, D.C. That ain't happening this time. I think I'm going to spend time with my family, which would be the wise thing to do. So, but anyway, that's the latest on what's happening with Jack Smith and the January 6th case. And we'll see where this goes. And I also want to point out one other thing. This is not an October surprise kind of thing. Donald Trump did everything he could to delay these trials. And you keep delaying them. And so once you keep delaying them, at some point, something has got to move on. And Jack Smith has now had to wait after the Supreme Court made their ruling about whether or not a president has full immunity when he's president and can do whatever it is that he wants to do. They made this ruling, and Jack Smith now had to redo his entire case. He did, and he brought it out. Whether you want to scream and cry if it's before the election, I don't really care. Neither do most people. If he did something illegal, and if he did what is said in that indictment, and again, this is public record. You could go on there and read it if you'd like to. But if it is true, which it is, there's no question about it, it's true, then he's guilty. He deserves to spend the rest of his life in prison. And he is probably going to, unless somehow he gets on a jet and flees and goes to another country. But when he loses in November, he's going to jail, whether it's this year or sometime next year. But next year, all of it is going to be trial after trial after trial for Donald Trump. And this has nothing to do with Joe Biden. This has nothing to do with Kamala Harris. This has something to do with the fact that Donald Trump is one of the biggest pussies that you will ever see in your life. He's not a tough guy. There's nothing tough about him. He is a weasel. He is a lifelong con artist that some of you, unfortunately, have bought into. But the good news is there are more people who are smart enough to listen to this guy. And it is shocking to me that there are people, even on the level of maybe not smart, maybe not dumb, but sort of somewhere in the middle, can listen to this guy and go, this guy is awesome. Again, I think the only people that would do that at this point, they know that he's full of shit, maybe, and they can listen to him and privately think to themselves, boy, this guy is just crazy. He's nuts. But boy, do I love the racist stuff. And do I love the hatred and anger towards Haitian people and immigrants and other people that have, and transgender people and gay people that at the end of the day have absolutely zero effect on my life. But boy, I still love hating them. And it's fun for me. It really completes everything about me that, there's really a scared little boy inside this fake man. And so I need to compensate by showing this over the top anger because it looks manly amongst other people. I got bad news for you. It's not manly at all. It's very sad. It's pathetic. And again, I look forward to the time where Kamala Harris beats Donald Trump in November and we put an end to all this nonsense that we have had to deal with for over 8+ years. I have followed politics for 25+ years. I really have. And when you're following it, there's a sense of, intellect that goes along with following it. And I try to learn as much as I can. And I go over and over and I read stuff. No, I don't watch CNN and MSNBC. I'm sure that's another boring take. Well, I'm sure. I know that's another boring take because I get it in the comment section all the time. MSNBC, CNN has probably been mentioned in the comments 1,000 times since we started this show. And again, I don't even really care to argue with them and let them know that that's not something that I watch. I find cable news to be terrible, even though I don't compare CNN and MSNBC to Fox News and Newsmax. They're two totally different garbage, but types of garbage, I should say. But I hope at some point in my lifetime, even though I think it's going to be difficult because now the news overall has found their golden goose, and their golden goose is Donald Trump has turned politics now into political theater, professional wrestling type news. And that's how they make their money now. And they're going to throw in serious stories here and there. But for the most part, they're going to turn it into this big clown show. Like Neil Cavuto the other day. He's the only one during the day on Fox News that reported this Jack Smith story. And when he reported it as if he was shocked, like, oh, wow, Donald Trump committed crimes. I can't believe it. Despite the fact that there's been an impeachment hearing, despite the fact that there's been a January 6th committee, he knows that there's been crimes. But on the channel that he works, he's not allowed to say this. He just has to pretend like, oh my gosh, you guys listen to this. And I'm sure it was during, I don't know what time Neil Cavuto's on. He's probably on the lowest rated time during the day. So most Fox News viewers didn't see it. And even if they did see it, they'd probably throw things at their TV anyway and say Neil Cavuto is a rhino, or I don't know, whatever the fuck they say, like TDS and all that dumb shit that you guys sit there and listen to. Like I said, used to have intellectual conversations. Now I'm having conversations with this guy. What's his name? Dan or some shit. Dave. Dave, who uses terms like TDS and shit like that. What else does Dave have to say? He worked at Harvard for 10 years. What, as the janitor? I mean, and a janitor's not a terrible job, but saying you worked at Harvard for 10 years, that means nothing. Axios is the bastion of news. Ha ha ha. That's the other thing that they like to do, is any news source, if they don't like the source, then they just say, ha ha ha, look at your source. But when you ask Dave, where do you get your news? He's going to tell me he worked at Harvard for 10 years. Same media that said Trump was a Russian spy and the laptop was Russian disinformation. First of all, the media never said Trump was a Russian spy. Find me that story where he said that. Number two, the laptop was Russian disinformation. You have a hard time with Facts Pal. First of all, I didn't even discuss the Russian laptop and the Russia thing altogether, so I don't even know what you're talking about. Wow, what a sad man. One viewer. Are you talking to me? I guess, Dave. Yes, I am talking to you. Sometimes, well, I will tell you why I only have one viewer. And the reason why is because my Twitter account right now is locked. Because Elon Musk's Twitter is absolute garbage. And it wasn't even a great comment. I'll admit it. It wasn't even that funny, but there was somebody said something about Elon Musk and Elon Musk, going back to South Africa or something. And I said, or we can shoot him up in one of his rockets to an undisclosed planet or some shit like that. Like I said, it's not even that funny. I'll admit it. But I think it's because it said shoot him up. It read it and automatically locked my account. And this was 3 days ago. I peeled it and, it's still showing locked. So my account will not be unlocked until next Tuesday or next Wednesday. So most of the viewers, when I do get live viewers, they do come from Twitter, and my Twitter account is locked. So there's really not much I can do about that. So it is what it is. And again, a lot of this so we could do some more content, and then we could put it out on YouTube, and then hopefully viewers will catch it on YouTube. And then people like Dave or Dan or whatever his name is will comment his nonsensical garbage. And like a moron, I respond to almost every bit of it.